Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. My voice is not strong again today. So
You're in a completely black room.
I know I tried to do a Zoom background, but because I have an older computer, I had to put a green screen up. And when I did that, it took my eye color out. So I had these black holes. I can show it to you. Hang on. Let me show it to you. See if I can do it. Hang on. Shh. No, of course, now that I want to do it. Oh, well.
I have a friend who has a green screen, and half the time she forgets that she has the green screen, and she'll wear a green shirt and it's a floating head. It's like, Bella, your head's floating again. Like,
I know, I'd rather, I don't think you can see the green screen because over my shoulder is my door. So it's just basically my room is dark. Anyway, Laney,
very mysterious.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Hi, Peggy. Hi,
How
Claire.
are you?
Hi, Laney.
Fine. Just adjust this a little bit.
There you go. There you go. All right, there, it's better for me. I did a gallery view. Now I can see everybody. And Karen's getting on. Lisa's getting on. Yay, Lisa.
I have all of my windows shut, but my cousin who lives across the street from me just headed out somewhere on his property with a chainsaw. So we're going to cross our fingers that it's far enough away that we don't hear it.
What I was going to suggest to you is, do you have your earphones? Because if you plug them in, there won't be any extraneous noise.
No.
Okay.
I think it will be fine. I don't think he's like close to the house.
Okay.
My husband just came. Do you want me to shut any other windows?
Well, you have the door shut, so that's good.
Yes, I have my doors shut. I have all of my windows shut.
All right, so hopefully it won't be just the 5 of us.
Yeah, let's go.
Remember last year?
Only 6 commitments to go.
So. Remember last year when we did this? Remember there were like 5 people in the room,
yes.
And one of them was that little girl.
Were dragged in against their will. They were customers in the store. They're like, "You have to come sit here."
One of them was that little girl.
Wasn't one your husband, Peggy? Wasn't your husband?
He came and then he left. Yes. But one of them was that little girl that had self-published a book, and she was only there to ask us, what she did wrong in her book. Remember that?
No, her mother. Her mother.
That was her mother.
Her mother.
She came to one RWA meeting, and again, her mother was the one that spoke for her, and we were all like, "Oh, sweetie, come back when you get a backbone.
Come back when you're like of age."
Very interesting.
It was more like come back when you're of age. What was she, like 16?
No,
17?
she was 18.
She was, okay.
She was of age. You would not have known it because
Mom
had a good firm grip on that girl.
Like that.
I want to thank you all. This is the first time I put on lipstick in 6 months.
Look, I did my hair. I did my hair and put a contact lens in, so I'm feeling good.
We should all be like,
I know. I was thinking that too. How stupid would that look?
Okay, so here's how bad I am. I made like, I don't know, a dozen beautiful masks, but they don't match in my clothes. So I'm having fits.
Yeah, solid.
So now I'm dressing to match the mask. It's really sad.
It's not. I actually think it's
a program out there for me somewhere.
Lisa, it's the height of fashion. My daughter's getting married on September 12th, and I have a deep blue
that's
dress.
The perfect day.
Yeah, well, I have a deep blue dress, and I have a surgical mask. So I'm trying to find a deep blue mask somewhere.
I will make you one.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Deep blue,
it's
like
this
navy
color.
blue, or
no,
like
it's
royal
this
blue?
Color. This color.
Royal blue.
Yeah,
like royal blue. Okay.
Yeah. So my husband has
something nice. You want sparkle or just
No. Just this.
I was married on September 12th.
Oh, really? Oh, Lisa,
Yep.
that's great.
39 years ago this year.
God,
oh, wow. What was 39?
I was a baby.
Lisa got married 39 years ago
Ah,
on September 12th, the day my daughter's getting married.
oh, how wonderful.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
And next year we'll get married again. So because he
Oh.
re-ups every 10 years. So.
Oh,
Just like the military.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Lisa, I knew that, but the one thing I've always not
iced
asked.
tea. I know it looks like wine, but it's not.
You're allowed to have wine.
Mine is not iced tea.
No one told me.
What do you think this is?
Ooh.
It's too big to be a Cosmo.
No, it's not. It's just not in a glass like that. It's just not in a glass like this. That's all.
Well,
But it's not a Cosmo. It's flavored water.
I
That's my
have
story.
a bottle of champagne waiting for me in the fridge because I wrote the end today.
Yay.
Yay!
Yay!
Best 2 words ever.
Yes.
Let me tell you, this one, I knew exactly what had to happen, where it had to happen, and I could not get words on the page. So this morning
That's
I
so
sat
hard.
down and I said, I may not brush my teeth or take a shower until this is done.
And she didn't, because she
And I did.
texted me when she did.
5,000
done.
words
Take
later,
a
I was
shower.
done.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That is fantastic. Good for you, babe. It's been, coming along all week.
It has.
So we've been good. Good girl.
And I only have that last act to edit to get off to my editor, and then I'm free and clear of that stupid thing until I get it back to upload.
Stupid.
Mine's at my editor's now, and I'm waiting to see how many revisions I'm going to have to do. So here's to hoping.
I always love that when we all say that. I wonder how many revisions. Just, it's your book. If you don't want to make the revision, you don't have to.
Make it better.
Make it better is different. But, Lisa and I have had issues where we've had people want to change the book.
Oh, no. No, mine's
Or have.
He hears my voice, and we're.
I had a copy editor. Now this is copy edit.
Copy editor.
This is typos and commas, and it took me 7 days to get through her edit.
Oh my God.
Because she wanted to make my pirates nice.
Yeah. She changed sentence structure, everything.
Oh yeah, she did. And I said, "Can't I just reject the entire edit and be done with this?" And they're like, "No, you have to go through everything." Wow. And I was past deadline. I'm like, they wanted it back in 24 hours. I went, no, not happening. So
yeah, that was not good.
Nightmare. It was a nightmare. Knock on wood, I've had great editors all the way along. And this one, yeah.
I don't think she lasted too long.
The field or something. I can't imagine having to start with someone new, but it happened.
I tried to be very professional, and I just said that perhaps this editor might be better suited to another author that we would not get along well in future. So please never let me work with this person again.
Wow.
And luckily, you didn't have to.
Yeah. No, I'm drowning in a sea of rejection letters right now, so it's awesome. Awesome. It's like, yes, sir, beat me again. Hit me again.
Yes, sir, I'll have another.
3 full requests, all rejections. It's like, really? One is like, this is great, but I really don't like pirates. Okay, then why did we read it?
For? Yeah.
Who doesn't like pirates? Excuse me?
Some people actually don't, believe it or not. I do. I'm not saying I don't. I love pirates.
Hey, come on. What's not to like about a pirate?
Knows how to use eyeliner.
That's right.
My pirates don't wear eyeliner. They don't have to.
Yours don't have to, Lisa. Trust me. We love Lisa's pirates.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. All of them. Girls and boys. The girls and the boys.
So I'm trying, so mentally, I'm trying to do the next book, which has a ton of research to it. And then I was just asked to do a continuum box set. And so that story's like kicking in my head. So I've got characters fighting up there. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. It's like, wait a minute.
Me.
Mine wake me up at night and say, no, you need to rewrite me because I would never say that in a gazillion years. And then I'm up all night long.
I painted 3 sides of my bathroom in chalkboard paint because, you know, when my characters wake me up, I have to pee. So
you can just write it down. That's awesome.
I write it on the wall. In fact, my whole
I love that, Lisa.
my whole pirate series was plotted on my bathroom wall. It's like, and it's in the guest bathroom off the guest room. And it's like, feel free to write on the wall, just don't erase this.
So I take a picture. See, I can't plot. I have a really hard time plotting. I pantser pretty much the whole thing. I have a general idea.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of does its own thing and I follow their lead. It's kind of funny.
Mine was most about, because it was a series, trying to get the timelines square. So that's, you know, okay, this one is this old in this book, so he has to be this old in this book. Yeah. So
that makes sense. Yeah, of course.
I used to pants until I got into the 3rd book in my series and started writing in circles. Like literally at one point I read through the whole thing because I said that I don't know what's going on. These people are just doing stuff that makes no sense to me. And I had literally
rogue characters.
Yes, they were. They had all gone off the rails. And I literally wrote one chapter twice in different parts of the book.
Whoa.
Because in my mind, it's like, oh, I need to have this scene. And clearly I didn't realize that I had already written it. And I went ahead and wrote it again.
Well, it was important.
It was important, not twice, though. But it was important enough to be in there once. And I ended up cutting 50,000 words out of that manuscript just to get it down to a controllable manuscript. And so after that, I don't plot the whole thing out. I know what the big points are.
Yeah.
And then I'll plot like the first act. And then when I'm like 3/4 of the way through that, then I'll look at the first part of Act 2 and kind of try and get some plotting done there. So, but even still, this last 5,000 words, I found out something terribly important about the villain that was perfect timing for him to let everybody know in the last 2 scenes of the story. However, I didn't know it until that point. So I thought,
I love it when that happens. I love it when that happens. It's like, aha. It's like reading a book for the first time. You're writing it and it just kind of has that same feeling, which is magical.
All right, you need to choose a side of the door.
She's talking to her animals. Don't worry, she's not talking to us.
No, I'm not.
Thank you for clarifying.
I'm like, wait a minute, what? Where are we going? What are we doing?
The cat that absolutely hates people and doesn't like to socialize at all has decided now at this very moment that she would rather be with people. And then she said, no, I really wouldn't rather be with people, and she has to be put out.
My neighbor has just decided to weed whack. So
you must live near Claire. Her cousin is sawhorsing or something outside. What is he doing? Chainsawing. Yeah, Claire has the only misanthropic cat I know. Hates people. So does everybody have the chat up? Can you see the chat?
No.
Okay. So on the bottom of this thing, underneath Michelle Baker's name, first of all, who hasn't been on a Zoom before? You've all been on a Zoom, so you know. You can either have like a Brady Bunch view, or you could do one person across the top. I like to do it in the Brady Bunch view so I see everybody. So if you want to do that, all you need to do is go up to the speaker view. It's up on the right-hand side of your screen, and click on it. It'll give you a grid. But on the bottom where it says mute, stop video, blah, 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 it says chat. If you click that up, you can see what everybody's writing. So whoever is in charge at the Toadstool, I think it's Elise. She's been sending us messages that they were going to wait till 4:05 to let everybody in. I have 4:06 on my clock, but so I don't know what's going to happen. But if you want to see what everybody's writing, just click on chat.
Gotcha.
That's your PSA for today. I will say nothing else about that.
It might be better just to let us all go and everybody can just observe what it's like in a room full of authors that have no
That's
barriers
true.
whatsoever.
Fly on a
Well, there isn't anyone in the waiting room.
I just
so
saw
here we
that.
are.
Did you see that? It's just going to be us.
So here we are.
But it is recording. So they are making a recording of
Oh,
it.
fabulous.
So if she gets on and asks us questions, yeah, she's saying, let's begin. Okay, Michelle's coming on, I think.
Cool.
Well, it says let's begin, but where is she? Okay,
So we're recording.
there she is. Turn your
Hello.
microphone on.
Sorry, I was having internet difficulties. I had to go into my little sister's room,
Oh, no.
so had to change locations.
So there's nobody in the waiting room? That's like so demoralizing.
You know, when I woke up this morning, I said, okay, it's the first really nice day, right? It's not blasting hot and humid, and it's not raining. It's like just the perfect summer day out. So everybody's going to want to be out in their yard, in their garden, taking a canoe trip or something like that. But people could tune in afterwards and watch the link in the recording.
Laney, where are you?
I am in Vermont.
Okay, I'm in Keene and it's raining here.
I was
Keene,
Oh,
New
is it?
Hampshire. Yeah, so I'm okay. I'm lucky.
Northern New Hampshire too.
Yeah. So I'm in southwestern, and
Lisa, how about central New Hampshire? Are you raining or no?
We're cloudy, but we've been cloudy all day. Where are you, Karen?
I'm in Ware. I'm
where?
where is.
Where and
Where?
where? No.
Who's on first?
I know. I used to live nowhere, so that's better.
There you go.
Nowhere, but yeah, it's nice here.
Good. Okay.
As
Well,
you can
we'll
see with the sun shining through the door, it's not too distracting.
We'll see what happens. So Michelle, do you have questions for us?
I don't. I've never participated. I mean, I've been in a Zoom meeting, but I've never done one like this. And I wasn't expecting to be the only reader, so
Ah,
I'm woefully
Love you, Michelle. Just
unprepared.
saying.
Toadstool is asking us to introduce ourselves, so maybe we can go around and introduce ourselves to each other and Michelle, because some of us don't know each other either.
go ahead, Claire. You're the first. You got a C, so you're the first in the alphabet. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Clair Brett. I am way up in Lisbon, New Hampshire, near the White Mountains and the Old Man. I write historical romance set in the Regency period. And as most of you know, I just wrote the end today on my 7th book. So yay, I will be celebrating quite a bit later. And that's it.
Short and sweet.
I'll go next. I'm Peggy Jager. I live in Keene, New Hampshire, southwestern border. I write contemporary, and I love the Toadstool because all my books are there. So yay.
Agreed.
Laney, you're next to me. Why don't you go next?
Okay, I'm Laney Webber. I write lesbian contemporary romance, and I live in Vermont with my wife and a snarky cat. I've been writing romance for the past 4 years. It was one of those things that, you know, I'm gonna, someday I'll sit down and maybe I'll write a book someday. And finally, I was convinced by a 94-year-old woman who I was working on her memoir. She wanted to write her memoir. And she said, sit your butt in the chair and start writing. So I did, and I love romance. I have since I was a teenager, and I kind of stole my, you know, people I was babysitting for, their books and read some. And I love seeing stories of women loving women, you know, in romance that have happily ever after endings.
It's great. Karen, you're next on the list here.
Obviously, I'm Karen Coulters. I'm fairly new at this. My debut came out May of 2019. It's a contemporary romance, takes place in the York Harbor area. And I grew up in the Midwest, but all my family was from Maine and New Hampshire. So every summer of my life, I would come to Maine and New Hampshire to see relatives. So that's actually where I met my husband. So my first kiss was on York Beach with him, and that was, we've been married for 38 years. And we have 2 grown children, and I have 2 granddaughters, ages 6 and 9, and they're aspiring writers as well. So I'm also writing children's books.
Oh.
So one of those is due to come out very soon, and it's called Fairy Dust Wishes for When You're Different. So it's about a little fairy who can't fly. So that's fun to do with my granddaughters. Gosh, what else? That's kind of it. I used to write dramas, theater productions. I would perform. I wrote a short story in somebody else's compilation book, and it's just something I've always wanted to do. And I agree. I love romance. I did the same things, except it was usually my mom's books I would kind of take and read. So who doesn't love a happy ending, especially in troubling times? So that's me in a nutshell.
Lisa, darling.
Okay. According to my bio, I'm a multi-published twin genre writer. I write historical and contemporary romance. On the steamy side with a dash of quirky humor. I am a 2018 Rita nominee.
Yay!
Yay! That and 50 cents, no. I wear many hats. I am also a justice of the peace because I'm all about spreading the love and the light and the whole bit. And it's awesome being able to stand in a sliver of time in a couple's life. Just watching them exchange vows is my thing. I love it. So that, and I am an aspiring beekeeper. We're getting bees next spring, and we're working on hives right now. So yeah, I am a jack of all trades kind of person.
There's a name
but I
for
love
that. That's not me.
Yeah, it's called ABD.
Isn't it called the Jack of all trades? No.
No, it's like an AV. It's an AV something. An apiatrist, apiatrist. Something like. Anyway,
I
sorry.
have no idea.
That's my Trivial Pursuit just coming in.
He also wrangles crows.
She does wrangle crows.
Is another good word. I do wrangle crows. I had a murder in my yard this morning. I have 3 new babies this spring, so I'm thrilled. So we have a flock of 7 crows that I feed on a regular basis, and I call them. So anyway.
I had a crow growing up, and actually a pet crow. My father was out hunting, and he shot it by mistake, and he felt so bad he brought it home, so we nursed it to health, and I had it for about a year.
Wow.
Kind of hung and stayed, and it was pretty neat.
They're so smart. They're just so smart. But I love them. And my neighbors don't love them because they get going about 5:45 in the morning because that's when I feed them. So yeah, but that's me.
Michelle, what do you like to read?
So I've been reading romance forever. My grandmother was a huge romance reader, and she was like all about, as long as you're reading, she didn't care what you read. So
Good woman.
Right. So I've actually been rereading a lot of stuff right now. And my where I go back to is always historical romances. So I've been reading Tessa Dare right now. And so that's kind of my comfort place. And then I branch out into other genres, but I tend to go back to historical romance as like my safety net when life gets stressful.
That's cool. That really is cool. Well, it looks like we got a question here. I'll read it. It goes, what makes the romance genre unique, and why are people drawn to it? Who wants to take that?
The HEA.
Yeah.
It's the
Can we all
happily ever
agree
after.
can we all agree on that? Yeah, I agree.
I also think it hits so much on feelings that we women have. You know, it's our lives in so many ways, the trials and tribulations and the problems and all of that ebb and flow through life. So we all can relate to, I think, to romance. And then with the happily ever after, hopefully we have that, but if we don't, there's a promise that it's possible.
Michelle, do you know the difference between women's fiction and romance? It's subtle.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
My understanding is that it's like how the story progresses. So with romance, it's the romantic element that's pushing the story along, versus in women's fiction, it's the conflict that the book is about that kind of pushes it around, and then sometimes the romance is a secondary thing to the
Aspect,
story.
right.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, in a romance, it's really the romance between the two protagonists that push it forward.
And who wants to tell her what the major reason is? The major difference. You all know it. We just said it. The difference between, the
It's
HEA, the
happily ever
happily ever
after.
after, right. In a romance, to be classified as a romance anywhere, you have to have the happily ever after. Although nowadays it could be like a happy for now. Doesn't have to end with a marriage ring and a commitment. Well, it has to end with a commitment. Doesn't have to end with a marriage and a baby and a carriage and all that crap. But it has to end with a committed couple. Women's fiction doesn't necessarily have to end that way. It could leave it open for interpretation. Am I right, you guys? Okay. Anybody else want to add to that? Sounds good. Okay.
You got it.
All right. So
Our
okay.
next question, go ahead.
No, you do it. I did the first one.
Okay. How emotionally connected are you to your characters? Do you laugh, cry with them? Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes. If I kill a character and I don't cry, then my reader's not going to cry. So I have written apology letters to my characters because I beat them up.
No, not Lisa Olech.
Pirates, I write pirates, Michelle. My historicals are pirates. I'm sorry, what? I didn't hear you.
She will kill a character off if they look at her sideways and not feel bad about it at all.
That's why I write historicals, because I get to kill people. No, I have written apology letters to my characters because I don't write fluffy pirates. I write pirates, and I've done extensive research about pirates, and it was a hard life. So my third book in my Captain series actually takes into consideration the historical event of 1692 in Port Royal. There was an earthquake, and I killed all but 5 of my crew in 10 minutes. And my agent at the time used to require she was an editing agent, and she would require a character list. So I had my character list, and next to him I would put a D with a circle. And she's like, "What's the D for?" I'm like, "Dead." So I don't use them again. And she goes, "Okay, your whole first page is dead." I went, "Well, yeah, it was a rough start."
It has to be authentic.
It has to be authentic, though. But yeah, I've had a couple kind of not upset readers, but like, "What? Why did you do that?" Like, it's a rough life.
I get connected. I certainly laugh and cry, but I touch on a lot of emotional sides of things, because there's death, and there's cancer, and there's Alzheimer's, and those types of things weave through. So, putting myself in the mindset of these characters, my heart breaks. So I cry, but I have one character in particular that always makes me laugh out loud. So I guess I'm on the right track when that happens. And don't you just love it when people respond that they can relate and love your characters? It gives you that warm and fuzzy that you're feeling like you're doing something right for them, because isn't that what it's all about? Trying to please our readers.
Absolutely. I was writing one scene. It was close to the end of the book, and this girl was just feeling like the world was on top of her, and she was trapped somewhere. And as I'm writing it, I realized that I just was crying. I was just tears And I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible as I'm writing it. And I knew she was going to have her happily ever after, but it was like at that moment, I realized that as I had been writing her, I was working through things that I didn't realize that I was working through as I was writing her. And I find that I think that's how my readers connect with my characters, because they see something in that character that reminds them of themselves, or something that they're dealing with currently in their lives. And, that helps them to be able to see that, okay, this is just a temporary thing, and we're going to get through this, whatever it is. And,
Yes.
So definitely.
I write basically romantic comedies, so I do laugh, and I laugh enough that I wet my pants, and then I cry because I wet my pants. But you have to. I mean, if you want to connect with people, even if it's just one reader, if there's one person who they'll look at your page, they'll look at your words, and they'll say, I either see myself in that, or I see somebody I know in that, or Christ, that could happen to me, or Christ, that did happen to me. Then then I feel I've done my job. My bio says that if I can make you laugh on one page, and if I can make you cry on one page and bring you out of it in the next page with tears, I feel I've done my job. Excuse me, I said that backwards. If I can make you cry on one page and bring you out of the next one with laughter, I feel like I've done my job. And so I'm not as scattered, because I plot. So I'm not scattered when I write. I'm scattered when I speak in public. But when I write, I plot. So it's very, very good. Laney, what about you?
I know before I've come out of my office, I've been writing and come out, and I'm just like, I'm saying to my wife, I can't go back in there, because I have to do something horrible in my first book to Lee. My other main character, Janica, was going to break her heart a little bit, and she's such a good person. She's so wonderful, and I have to write, this, and I'm like, oh, I can't do it to her, but I have to do it to her, but I can't do it to her. So that I've also been awake at night with kind of the same feeling, either being excited feeling because I know what's going to happen next in the story, so I can't wait to get up and write it, especially when near the end, when they're going to get together finally, and I get so excited about that and happy for them. And likewise, if I have to do something not nice to them, I don't like doing it. There's not a lot of thrill in doing it, but then after I've written it, I like it because I see how it's moving the story along. So,
see, I really like writing bad girl stuff and bad boy stuff and really awful, nasty things. That's my little dark side of me.
Are you Catholic?
It's that evil things.
No, I'm asking that seriously. Are you Catholic? Because I am. And I like that too, because there's so much guilt that I just get out. When I write all that bad stuff, I'm like, I feel good now. It's not a problem. I don't have to go to confession.
Yeah. I like the good stuff too. I am a sap, but I definitely like to write bad things. I don't know.
It's good though. It's fun. It really is. It's fun to read too. I mean, if you can find, even as writers, we're readers. So if you can find an author that hits those notes for you, it's amazing. It's amazing. There's a lot of crap that gets written and published, but there's an awful lot of good stuff too. So it's good.
There's an awful lot of good stuff.
Yeah, it's an awful lot of good stuff. I have to remember that. I don't know. Do we have another question? Miraculously. Who wants to take this one?
Oh, I'll take it.
Go ahead.
Okay. So it says, what is your process for creating characters, and do your characters ever surprise you as the story unfolds? My characters, I usually get like one fully formed character that just pops up and says, hey, how you doing? This is me. This is my story. And that character usually shows up about the halfway point in the work that I'm currently working on, and then will not shut up until I at least write, a little bit about what their story is, so they know that they're going to get put on the waiting list. But my characters surprise me all the time. And Karen was saying before we started that she was a pantser, that she's never been able to plot. And I'm kind of making that transition from being a pantser to being a plotter, but I didn't want to lose that
Spontaneity.
What?
You didn't want to lose the spontaneity.
I didn't want to lose that for myself.
Right.
Watching it unfold as the story happened. So I was very happy today. I was saying that I wrote the end on the next book in my series, 7th book altogether that I will have published. And in the last 5,000 words, the villain, as he was doing his monologue, like all good villains do, because I'm a James Bond girl, you know, that was the one thing I was allowed to stay up late to watch as a kid. I don't know why my parents thought that was okay, but I didn't argue. So I love me a good villain, and they have to have a really good monologue at some point. And in his monologue, I found out his connection to the hero that I did not have any clue. As I'm typing it, I'm like, oh my God, that's so great.
Like a light bulb.
So yeah, I think as the story unfolds and you get to know the people, because they really do end up being people, at least to me, I live with them constantly.
No, we all do, yeah.
You know, so once you get to know them better, you do learn a lot of stuff as the story unfolds, and you understand more why they're doing what they're doing. And sometimes they try and zig instead of zag, and you have to figure out what you got wrong in the conflict or the plot, because clearly there's a reason why they're not going along with your story. And so yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's the same for me. I may be the only one here, I'm not sure, but are you all pantsers? Or am I the only true plotter? Okay, we got a hybrid.
I plot a little bit. I plot, you know, very broadly.
Lisa, do you pants and plot?
I'm like Laney. I am a very loose plotter.
Okay. I think I may be the only one that's a complete plotter. Yeah. She's learning. She's learning. She's learning though.
My current work.
Very nice, Claire.
Post-it notes. So if something changes, I can just move them. I can add one, I can take one away, or I can just throw them out and pretend they never existed.
Yeah, I do all that on programs. I have plotting programs. I'm a nurse by trade, so I approach everything from, you have to go from A to B to C, so scientific method wise. So I tried to pants a story once, and I almost had to go on Xanax because I had such anxiety about it. So it's very much easy. I'm the person that you hate to travel with, because I have to know where we're going, when we're going to get there, if we're stopping, how long are we stopping for, are we getting food, blah, blah, blah. And that's the way I write too, but it helps me because I write extremely fast. I do 4 books a year on average, and I've only been writing since 2015 commercially. So I've got 23 books out in that time because everything is plotted. So my answer to this question is no. My characters never surprise me because they're fully formed by the time I ever start the first word of the first page. Like I said, that's just me, and I'm anal. Most people aren't that ridiculous. They really aren't. They're easy. But I don't ever want to go on Xanax, so I have to know where I'm going.
I don't know. I just start from A and just end up in Z. And like, I did have a character that she's one of the critical parts in the beginning of the story. And then she was gone for the bulk of the story until she decided to come back when I least expected it. And now I can't even begin to imagine what that story would have been like had she not come back. It would have been an entirely different book. And it is beyond my comprehension of what it would be like without her. So had I plotted in the way I think, then she would never have come back. So I love being able to have that freedom of letting them write the story for me and following their voices and where they want me to go. There's sometimes I really have to rein them in, but for the most part, it helps me. But I'm also like you, Peggy, when it comes to my life, I'm very organized. I'm a little OCD.
The word you're looking for is anal, because that's what it is. That's what it is. I'm a nurse. I know these things. It's anal.
So in real life, I'm that way, but when it comes to writing and performing, it's just naturally just comes. That's all.
Yeah, I don't think I could be spontaneous on the page if I tried. But it everybody looks at their books a different way too. Before I sit down and I plot, I actually see my entire book as a movie in my head. And I write down all the major things that happen, and then I plot them out, what's going to happen in each scene. But that's the way my mind works. Not every writer does it that way. In fact, I know a couple of girls that whenever they try to sit down, they lose their creative spark. So whatever gives you the creative spark is the right answer, in all honesty.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
When I'm creating characters, what usually happens, because the character always comes first to me and then the plot follows, somebody will just spring up. For my second book, The Real Thing, I was at a roller derby game. And all of a sudden, in my mind's eye, there was this other roller derby team person going around. And as I watched the game, she was telling me who she was, basically. And her name came to me, not her roller derby name. That took a lot of kind of finessing on my part, because I didn't want to, have anyone who is on a roller derby team, her name. So that was, so she ended up being Mashley Whiplash on the roller derby. But that's how,
Whiplash.
Yes. And they do surprise me when I'm writing, because I think that I'll know them and something will happen, or I'll write something, and then I kind of have that, it's like they're on my shoulder going, no, like, delete. I would never do that. I would never say that. Don't have me go that way. So sometimes we're in a little bit of a tussle there.
Yeah. Great question. It really is. Good.
Characters come to me different ways. Sometimes I get a visual image, and I know exactly what they look like, and then I change their name 8 times because I can't decide on what they should be called. Other times I get the name, like boom. My second contemporary, my sculptor is Maximo Vega. I had Maximo Vega. I had that name forever. Like, okay, he's Maximo Vega. And I, did a whole story around Maximo Vega. So, and sometimes names come to me really quickly, and I can't write you until I know what your name is. My hero that I changed 8 times drove me crazy, because I couldn't start the book until I knew his name. And it took me weeks to come up with his name. And most of my secondary characters that surprise me. By the time I get going, I know my 2 main characters fairly well. But it's the secondary characters that they're critical to how the story goes, and then I'll get to their front door and they are completely different. And it's like, oh, okay, we're going left. All right, here we go. But generally my main characters, I don't keep them under rein very well, but they don't horribly surprise me. But my secondary characters do a lot. And I think that's the best part of writing for me, is that I'm surprised. And, I'm writing this story and I'm surprised. It's like, wait a minute, this is awesome. And, I love it. That's the best part for me. So, but no, I think coming up with characters is very individual. And, some people, I don't know if you do this, Peggy, because you're so organized that you have organized that you have a character checklist or a questionnaire or anything.
Yeah.
And when I teach workshop, one of the things I always tell aspiring writers, if they're doing a character checklist, is how do they feel naked in a room? Because it's huge to how they interact. And especially if you're writing sex, There's so much that comes into that room or wherever you're having sex.
Yeah.
So much comes into that, and your character brings all of that baggage with them. So that's one of the key things that I always kind of figure out first. You know, if my heroine has body image issues, I had one heroine that he couldn't find her. The room was so dark. Because she had, it was so dark. He's like, okay, where's the bed? You know, he couldn't even find the bed because the room was so dark. So it you know, it all depends, and it's all part of developing that character. So
Lisa's point about body images is a big one for romance writers too, because if you write sweet romance, okay, you're probably not going to go past a kiss. But I know Lisa and I both write steamy romances, and we, you know, my characters have a lot of sex once they've committed. And in my most recent book, the heroine was in a coma for 10 years. And as she was in a coma, there were things done to her body. You know, she had a tracheostomy tube. She had intravenous lines in her. She had surgery all over her body. So she comes to a relationship with many, many, many physical scars. Her emotional scars she's able to deal with, but the physical scars are something she hasn't let a man see. And this is a rom-com, just so you know. It's not that heavy, but that's something you need to think of too. When you think of your characters and you flesh them out, Lisa's point about how would they feel naked in a room is a valid one, but also is the physical aspect of it, but what is the emotional aspect and the past aspect that they're bringing into that room, and two other characters as well. You know, my characters are pretty much snarky and intelligent and independent women, but those characteristics hide very, you know, inferior feelings that they have about their bodies and their lives and their past. So it's a good, you know, characters are amazing, like people are amazing. They don't just spring on the page. They have to be thought of.
And their backstory is vital.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have, what is their baggage?
Yep.
How do they move forward with this baggage? You know, when you lose your husband unexpectedly, how quickly do you feel guilty if you fall in love too soon? You know, those types of things. You're going to know those types.
That's one of the things that I have always loved about romance is how the characters develop through the story.
Mm-hmm.
Like how that character development, that growth with the characters through the story. You know, how women are strong women, but that still have some issues or something going on in the background, and to see that evolve and to see them change, you know, throughout the story. That's something I've always loved about romance.
Yeah, I love that too. I agree with you 100% on that. It's wonderful to see.
But it's fun to put a woman with body image issues with a nudist.
Yes, it
which
was.
is what I did.
That's Lisa's first book, Picture Me Naked.
That's my first book, Picture Me Naked.
Yeah.
And, so it's her growth through the story about accepting herself and accepting her as a lovable person, because she came off a really I can't talk. Abusive relationship. And how she comes to not only love herself but love this man who thinks she's, you know, fabulous. So but it's fun, and you get to throw these characters together and just kind of watch what happens.
Claire has a character in one of her books that's totally tattooed.
Yes.
And that's like historical. So just think about a female having tattoos in a historical book. That comes with its whole world of issues.
That was, and the love story part of that and all of the sex scenes that are in that are the hero trying to reframe, because she was kidnapped and her father wouldn't pay the ransom. So the people that kidnapped her, she was in India, a diplomat's daughter, and they decided that the only way they were going to make money off her was if they sold her as a bride. So in order to show how much she was worth, they had to tattoo her. And when she finally gets back to the States, or not the States, but England, she takes the first marriage offer she gets, because she knows she's probably not going to get another one. And he spends the whole story with every single tattoo that she has trying to reframe it, because she sees it as, you know, an invasion of her body, and a lot of the images made no sense to her because she was not from that culture. And so he helps her get through that and reframe it, because she has to live with that body for the rest of her life. So
Fascinating. Fascinating. Okay, who wants to do the next one? Laney or Karen?
I'll do it.
Okay.
What is the most difficult thing about writing characters from the opposite sex? Well, I enjoy doing that, actually. I don't struggle too much with that, but I do definitely use my husband as a resource and some other male friends of mine. And I find that helpful because I want them to be authentic, truly authentic. And my characters wake me often at night, as I said before. And there was one particular scene, he would never do that in a gazillion years, react like this. So I make those changes, but I kind of glean from people. I'm a people watcher and a people observer. So I pull in a lot of those types of traits and nuances and habits and, those types of things within my characters. So I enjoy it. It's actually kind of fun for me to try to get in the mind of the opposite sex.
Lisa, I have to do this. Lisa, the very first day that I met her, told a story, I think she knows what I'm going to say, about she was writing what happens physiologically to the male body when it's aroused. Lisa, do you want to take the story?
Okay. First, I have to say that I am an estrogen island. No sisters, sons, no daughters. I am an estrogen island. So I get guys, okay? I know them. So I can write a male point of view really, really well. So, but I was writing Picture Me Naked, and one of the scenes, and this is right after their first night of having sex, and she does this thing, and he gets excited while he's modeling. Okay, that's the scene. So I asked my husband. I did not ask my sons. Horrors. I asked my husband. I'm like, what is the pre-warning system? And he's like, well, all the blood leaves your. I'm like, okay, I have a brain, and your heart starts pounding. I have a brain and I have a heart. The part that I don't know about is what I need assistance with. And he's like, I don't know. His comment was, I don't know, come here, let's see. So I went on a mission. I was on a mission. And all I needed was 3 or 4 words.
A phrase.
I just need I need a sentence, okay? I need one sentence that describes just what happens just prior. And I asked over 50 men. 50 men, and none of them could describe this. And I asked all their significant others, go home and ask your boyfriend, your husband, ask him this question. I need to know. I'm doing research. None of them. And all the women I asked were, oh yeah, I'll go. Oh, Fred will tell me he's a pig. No, Fred is not a pig, because he will not discuss this. He's like, no, we're not talking about that. 50 men, 50. And I'm like, this can't be that hard. Pardon the pun.
That was the problem.
We had a funny, I'm sorry. Lisa, were you done with that?
No, I did find one man who, and I thank him in the book, in my acknowledgments of the book, and I've never met him personally, and have told him that we never will meet, thankfully. But I refer to him as Monty, as in the full Monty, and he was brilliant. He gave me the exactly what I needed. I'm like, thank you. Oh, that wasn't too difficult. So. anyway.
I was struggling one time. I had the word manhood in my book, and my family do family dinners every other week, and so we all come to the same house and we sit down and we have family dinner. By now the granddaughters are often playing, and so my adults and their significant others were sitting around the table. And I read this section and I said, I want to come up with a better word than manhood for this particular scene, because I just couldn't think of something. And they were just like having this entire conversation about the different names that you could call it. Was just a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. And of course you get the thesaurus out, and my daughter's an English teacher. And so, she's pulling up all kinds of things and we're reading just hysterical stuff. So it's just a kind of a silly family dinner night discussing male anatomy. And I guess I raised them very open with things because it didn't seem to faze them a bit, which is kind of a cool thing. Yeah.
I have a question for Laney.
Sure.
You write lesbian romance. So
I do.
you don't have to worry about writing the opposite sex reaction. How do you make it so that I think I know the answer to this question, but how would you make it so that each character is individualistic in their responses? Because one would imagine physiologically, two people of the same sex are going to have pretty much the same reactions.
Well, no, not necessarily. They won't have the exact same reactions. I mean, in general, there are a lot of the same reactions. But I do write opposite sex characters. They're side characters. They're just not the main characters of the story, but there will be side characters that are men, which are fun to write. I like Claire. I'm a people watcher, and probably like everybody here, very much watch people and know a lot of men. And so that's, I like writing male characters. That's fun. But yeah, writing women, what's difficult writing women, especially if you're writing a sex scene, is there's a lot, there's a pronoun for most women is she. So you have to be really careful whose point of view you're in and not confusing the reader about who's where and whose hand is where and whose leg is where. And so that can be a little
yeah, that was the
difficult.
basis for my question, because that was what was in my head.
Yeah, the words are, there's different things happening to them because they're different people, but the wording, the use of pronouns and use of characters' names, and people aren't going to always be like saying the other person's name constantly.
Correct.
They're having
Correct.
sex. So that's challenging. That is challenging. It's a lot easier to write a man and a woman, and to have people know just who is speaking and what's happening just because of the differences in them.
Yeah, I love writing a male viewpoint. Most of my rom-coms are in first person, and the first person is the female. But in the other books I've written, strict contemporary and romantic suspense, it's two-person point of views, third person, perfect. And I enjoy getting into the head. I enjoy getting into the thought processes. Let's rephrase it. The thought processes of the male character. Sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm not. But yeah, the thought processes are so different, and the language is different. Like Lisa says, she knows how men walk and talk and speak. I do too. I love writing how men speak to one another and to women, because it's different. It's different, whatever room they're in, it's different. So that's really, I love that. That's just fun. It's just fun.
Yeah, I agree. I really like having, when I have my hero, I like him to have another male character to kind of play off of, because I write historicals. There are certain things or ways that a man would not act in front of a woman in a historical romance, at least not when he first meets her. So it's fun to have that secondary character so you can really see what he's really like and what he's really thinking. I've worked with some young writers who they write the man the way they would want them to be. And so they have these big long prose and this big, that is not what guys do. Guys are about action. Their speech patterns are much shorter than women's. It's all about getting to the nuts and bolts of whatever it is. So it's very different. You have to make your characters the heroes that you want with their actions, because they're not going to, you know, they're not going to be all poetic if you have a real guy in your piece. You know, they have to show that they're that hero that all of the women want. And one of the reasons why we all go to romance, because no matter how broken the heroes are, you find that one little nugget that makes them the hero that you've been hoping they would be. But they're not going to do it in their monologues. They're going to do it with their actions. And I have a really fun time when I have 2 or 3 guys in a scene. I have a book that it's my Under the Bed book. It's the first book I ever wrote, and that was before I knew that there were any rules at all other than grammar rules. And I head hop all over the place, and I have this one scene that I absolutely adore, and if I ever rewrite the book, I'm gonna have to figure out how to do it correctly. But the hero is actually unconscious, and he was thrown into a carriage, and his buddies are bringing him home because they've had enough of his bull crap, and he needs to do what he's supposed to do. And the only way they can do that is to get him home. And he
in my office,
he's unconscious, and he's like coming to, and he's hearing all of these guys talking about him as if he's still unconscious. And it's a fabulous scene. But like Laney was saying, there are so many pronouns thrown around in that carriage, and the guy still has his eyes closed because he's trying to figure out where he is, and he doesn't know if he's with friends or foes. So he's trying to get a beat on the situation. And at the time, you know, I just threw he's and hims and wherever. And when I read it now, I'm like, oh yeah, I have no idea who these people are. So if I ever rewrite it, I'm going to have to figure out how to do that better. But yeah.
I always think of Elmore Leonard when I think of male characters. Elmore Leonard writes the shortest sentences in the known world that carry the most weight per character. And that's the way I think men talk. They use most men, they can use the least amount of words to get their point across. And you don't even need like a tag. You don't need to say Tom said or he said, because you can hear Tom's voice in that short sentence. And that's, you know, it's hard to do. It really is. But when you do it right, it's so rewarding. It's so rewarding to read it back and think, oh, I wrote that. You know, it sounds good. All right, anybody else have anything to add? We don't have another question yet. Oh, we do. Laney, this one's yours. Laney, this one's your question. Take it.
Well, the hardest scene to write in the last book that I wrote, The Real Thing, which came out in April, was when I had the 2 main characters are Gina and Allie. Gina is a web series actress who's very, very popular. Allie lives in Vermont, in rural Vermont, where they don't even have internet, so she has to go to the library for internet. And they don't have a lot of lesbians either where she lives. She can't find lesbians. So she did some online dating and got catfished by a woman who was using this web series actress, her photo. So she writes to the web series actress and says, you know, after her heart gets broken, and says, you know, I just want to let you know that there's this horrible person using your picture. And they end up meeting, and sparks fly. And of course sparks fly. And So I had Gina surprising Allie by going to one of her roller derby games, which may or may not have been a good surprise. And having her go and trying to explain the game for maybe the reader that doesn't know roller derby, but not have it look like I was doing a instruction manual for roller derby.
Yeah.
And just have it seem natural. That was really difficult. It was fun because I'm a librarian and I love research, but it was a difficult scene to write in that, to try to make it seem natural.
That is hard. I agree with that. There are a lot of books that I've read that they're describing something like that. And I feel like I just want to go like this to the pages, just turn them, because it's just like an instruction manual.
Yeah, I didn't want it to be like that.
Yeah, for me, I answered this question last year, and it's still the same. My third book was called First Impressions, and it was about somebody who had a reputation and somebody who that person wanted to be with. And in the book, the heroine's cat passes away, and the hero is a veterinarian. So at the time I was writing that story, my own 18-year-old cat had recently passed away. And I thought I was fine, with it. We did she was a Catholic cat, so we did the burial. We had like a little mass in the backyard, all this stupid stuff that's tradition. But we got closure, or so I thought. So I start writing the scene where the heroine's cat is sick, and that she's ultimately going to die. And I had to stop because I started to shake. I got sick to my stomach. I started to cry. So I walked away from it, and I walked away from it for about a day. I went back. I wrote one sentence. Same thing started happening again. It took me to write 250 words. It took me almost a week and a half, because every time I went back to it, I went through the physical aspects of grief. And I knew I was grieving for my own cat. But I will tell you, when I sent it off to the editor at the publishing house, she actually called me when she was in the middle of reading and said, I have not been able to stop crying, because I read this, the story about the cat dying, and the passage about the cat dying, and it brought up so many memories of my pets that have passed over the years. And I said, that actually makes me feel good, because that means what I did was I connected. I wrote words that actually made you viscerally feel something. And every person that's ever read that book that I've spoken to afterwards has said the same thing, that one scene touched them almost as much as the other ones, because they could relate to the loss of a loved pet so well. So I was able to work through my grief, but for 250 words, it took me over a week to get it right. So that was my hardest scene to date. And that was 4 years ago, and 20 more books. So something. Who next?
I'll go. I had a similar experience as yourself, Peg, but my mother passed away this past year. And
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. It was a blessing in a sense. She had dementia from having had strokes and whatnot. So she was in a nursing home. And in my second book, it is a secondary character has Alzheimer's. So the main character's mother has Alzheimer's. And so working through some of those scenes in the nursing home and the different experiences that one goes through, seeing a loved one going through that type of pain, really agree with you. It was like, oh my goodness, it got me in the feels. I don't know how many times, and I'd have to walk away. Outside of the emotional aspect of it, the technical difficulty in my first book was one of the characters was an attorney, and he was dealing with some people that were really horrific attorneys. They're just very unethical, and there were court proceedings, and there were a lot of twists and turns when it comes to the prison system and those types of things. So it was a lot of research and trying to get it so that it was authentic. If I happened to be an attorney reading it, it would seem right. And the prison system, making sure that it's correct, but not have it be so clinical. To be able to have that balance of having the flexibility of having it still be a fiction, and yet have it be real. and not going down this huge path of, you know, putting way too much thought behind it. So that was challenging. Fortunately, I did have a lot of resources of people that I could pick from, but trying to tell the story like that was a challenge for sure.
That's like what Laney said. You don't want it to be dry.
Right.
I mean, we've all read books that are just, they sound like somebody just threw a textbook into the middle of this exposition. And it's like, that's when you find yourself doing this with the pages.
You have to do 100% of your research and use 10% of that knowledge.
I always say 2. Yeah. 10% is good.
Yeah.
And you have to write it in such a way that you're not reading the research. You know, you're not parroting back the research. And there are really, I've read some really not great writers who you can tell they cut and pasted they cut and pasted from Wikipedia and put it right into this sentence. And it's just not fun to read. I already went to school. I don't need to read textbooks.
Yeah.
Claire?
I would say I answered this question last year as well, and the scene that I talked about last year, I would say is still right up there with one of the top ones. But I think that a scene that I wrote in Marked for Love, which is the book Peggy was talking about, that I had the heroine that was tattooed from top to bottom. She even had facial tattoos, and so it was very difficult for her to hide it. And at the same time, she is determined to not let it hold her back. And there was a scene where she decides, more or less on a whim, that she is going to go to this luncheon in the neighborhood there in the country, and that to meet the other women in the neighborhood. And the hero is completely against it because he has had a bad experience and wants to be completely out of society because he doesn't like the way that they treated his sister. And so he's not for it at all. So she goes to this luncheon, and she was with her mother and sister, and they do help to buffer her some. But it's that same scene that we've all lived in junior high or high school, where we walk in and, it wasn't what we thought it was going to be. We aren't in the right clothes, or the people are not as accepting, and you feel like you're being stared at the whole time. And everybody that whispers to somebody else, you're certain they're talking about you. And it really just hit a lot of those buttons for me, as far as, having to do these things that it's not within our comfort zone, but if we want what we want, we need to get through that. And then the fact that she had to go home, and the hero had found out that it didn't go well, and this was earlier on in the book, so he still had a little stuff to work on. So he was not as much, oh, come here, that's terrible, but we'll work through it. He was going, see, I told you so, and that's why we're not ever going to go out into society. So she wasn't getting any help from, don't worry, she gets him back, definitely. But, and he sees the error of his ways eventually. But it was, that one just kind of hit that little girl inside that always wants to be accepted everywhere. But when you have the outward scars, it's very difficult for everybody to accept you. And a lot of us have the inward scars, but we think that everybody sees them. So it was one of those really, really difficult moments, but she got through it. So it's all good.
Of course.
Lisa?
Well, other than sex scenes, which are just brutal to write.
Really?
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
Whip those out.
They are. No.
What are you whipping out?
The whole scene.
Well,
the whole scene.
no, there's just not enough words. Okay, there's just not enough words, because this is a hand. Okay, these are fingers, and digits is not a sexy word, and so there's just so many words. Anyway, I can rough draft 50,000 words in 30 days. A sex scene will take me a week for 7 pages. But the hardest emotional scene for me to write was it was I tried to kill one of my characters.
Bump.
Pride.
I tried to kill Bump, and
Big Bump.
for the reader in the room who's still here, I created this character, and I brought him on board this pirate ship at the age of 4, and he's deaf, and so I have this deaf child that they nicknamed him Bump because he was always in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he kept getting whacked in the head, and he always had a lump on his head. So now I had every plan to kill Bump.
She did.
Spoiler
She
alert,
did.
I couldn't because several of my plotting partners and my critique partners went nuts.
Ape shit.
But he ended up being the character in my Rita Award book, which was one of the hardest books I've ever written, because when I brought him in book 2, he's deaf, but I also made him nonverbal. So I couldn't all of a sudden at 34 years old make him verbal. So I have a hero who doesn't speak. So if you look at my books lined up, the 5th book is a lot thinner. It's the same word count, but it's 25 pages shorter than my other books, because there's no white space on the page, because there's no typical dialogue. So that was a really hard book to write.
Mm-hmm.
But the book prior, when I tried to kill him, now the woman on the pirate ship, she ends up being the captain. She is his pseudo mother. She has known this child and loved this child since he was 4 years old. And she watches him get shot in the back. And I experienced my very first panic attack writing that scene, to the point where I thought I was having a heart attack, and I realized, okay, I think this is a panic attack. But there was a lot going on in my life and things like that, and I knew I had to write this scene, and I knew how difficult it was going to be to write it from her point of view, and to slip my feet into her pirate boots as a mother watching her son get shot. And it was horrible. It was horrible. I had a flat out panic attack. I had to stop writing. I had to get up and leave. And it was a difficult scene to write. And how she reacted after the fact was, I loved, because at this point I've taken everything away from her. So she's like, you want to hang me? Hang me. Give me the rope. I'll do it myself. That was her attitude. And but spoiler alert, he survives because he is my 5th hero. And of course, I've named him Bump. All right. In all these books, I've named this character Bump. Now he's the captain. He can't be Captain Bump. I'm sorry. How sexy is that? So fortunately, I gave him a Christian name way back, and so I brought that forward. See, I am a true pantser, and I'm a pantser even in my series, because I don't even imagine that it's going to be a series. I never imagined the first pirate book would turn into 5. So had I, plotted like, I don't know, Peggy, and had, some sort of vision, I would have made him verbal. Thank you very much.
No, you could never make him anything but what he is. And the proof of the pudding is that is your Rita-nominated book. That character touched everybody that read that book. So to make him verbal, to make him verbal would have taken away from that. So
Right.
no, it was
And
to be.
fortunately, in my research, I discovered that sign language was developed around that time by a Spanish monk. So I worked it in how they could get their hands on a book. So there was some signing involved. So he and his mother Tupper um, communicated quite well back and forth. They had their own little way of communicating that really worked. But then in the 5th book, I took all that away. I threw him, I sank his ship, I killed his mother. I threw him into the South China Sea. And again, I had done all this research on, European pirates, English pirates. And then I throw them all into the South China Sea, where the food is different, the clothing is different, the ships are different, everything is different. And I start writing this book, I'm like, okay, that was stupid. But here we are. Because my 5th heroine is based on the most successful badass pirate that ever lived, Ching Shi. And she had to be my 5th heroine. So, but again, you do all that research and then you can't use it, because that's how smart I am.
Oh, that was good. All right, I think, do we have another question? I'm waiting to see. I'll take this one. How do you decide where facts end and creativity begins? Oh my God. Okay, so I don't write historicals. I love to read historicals. I love Regency. Lorraine Heath, Eva Lee, they're and what's the other one? Lisa Kleypas. They are like my ultimate go-tos when I want to just like lose myself in Regency. But I could never do all the research that they have to do. Now, for this question is good for me only because I live in the here and now. So I don't really need to do that much research because it's like going on all around us. But there are some things I have had to research. Even as a nurse, I've had to go back and look at like procedures that need to be done. Like my most recent book, Woke, is about the woman who was in a coma for 10 years. I needed to go back and see, clinically, what procedures would have been done to her. So I got all my nursing books and all that medical books from my husband out. The way to incorporate it into the creativity aspect of it is I just didn't want to say, okay, she had a tracheostomy so she could breathe. She had intravenous lines in her heart so she could get fluids. She had to go to surgery because she had wounds on her back that had to be debrided and grafted. I wanted to show it because, that's our basic tenet, show, don't tell. So the creativity came out when I decided to give her body a roadmap, and then the hero is the one that, for lack of a better phrase, drives around it and discovers each and every one of the things that was done to her body and shows her how it doesn't deter from her beauty at all. So for me, writing contemporary, it's not hard to put the little bits of research that you have to do into it, because again, we're in the here and now. For somebody that writes historical, you have to, first of all, you have to know what you're writing. Like Claire and I had this discussion once. I set a really good table for Christmas, but I didn't know there were like 15 different knives and 6 different goblets, and some have to go on the right and some have to go on the left. And that's all from her research, from learning how to set a Victorian table. So for my answer is, how do you decide where facts and creativity begin? They mesh. They mesh for me. Who wants to take it next?
People that are reading Regencies, they don't care what fork the people are using. So, it's one of those things where I get I start getting all nervous at the idea of writing a contemporary and getting something wrong, because you're going to have people that, no, I'm a firefighter and we would never do what you said we did, ever. With historicals, I love history, and of course my love of reading is usually, my choice is historical. But you learn the basics. You have to know, and it depends on your story. If your heroine prides herself on setting the perfect Regency table for a dinner party, and she prides herself on never putting somebody in the wrong place at that table, yes, then you definitely need to know where a duke would sit at the table as opposed to where a baron would sit at a table. But if that's not something that the reader needs to be pulled into the scene, that's where the whole you have to know this much information, but you only give them this much. So you can talk about the design of the china, or the fact that she put the duke to her right, or however you want to do that. But I think that with historical romance, I am not writing historical fiction. I'm not. And if I ever get told I have to, I waitressing, I guess, is my next choice. I know the essence of the period, and I have a series that I'm planning now that is going to run the length of the Regency. So from the point at which the Prince Regent takes over via Parliament to the point at which his father dies, and then he is crowned king. And in doing that, because it's going to be more like a political thriller in the Regency, with a hero that is working for political gain, and I'm having to do quite a bit of research. I'm having to learn who the Whigs are, who the Tories are, who were the big players in that time, because they were switching back and forth constantly between who Prinny liked, who Prinny didn't like, who liked Prinny, who didn't like Prinny. And then I'm trying to incorporate those types of things in there. The story that I just finished today is actually based, the person that everybody is trying to protect was an actual leader of the movement for Italian unification back when the Habsburgs and all of them were in play, and you had two Sicilies, basically. You had Italy and then you had Sicily. And he actually had to, the real person had to go into hiding. And so the story is around them trying to hide this real life figure. Now, there's not much that I could find out about him other than that he lived to a ripe old age in Denmark. So I get to play with that a lot, but I have to have the basic facts right.
Mm.
So.
Laney?
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Laney.
I was just say, Laney.
Just really quickly, because I think our time's a little long. What other folks have said about doing contemporary, that, if there's like the roller derby, like there was a park ranger, like there was a web series actress, things, I'm really good with the imagination, like, oh, this person's going to do roller derby. This person's a park ranger. I know nothing about that. And people are very generous with their time.
Yep.
I wrote to a couple of web series actresses that are in lesbian dramas on the web, and they were so generous with just send me your questions, and I asked all kinds of questions. But again, like everybody said, I used like this much in the book, but I really needed this much. It was very important to the story. So yes, along with what everybody else says, but it's fun. I can get very lost down the rabbit hole of research.
Yeah, I think we all can. That's true. The internet is a great thing, but it can be a disaster some days too when you're on a deadline. Who wants to go next? Lisa? Karen?
Oh, who? I'll go.
Go ahead, Karen.
So my third book coming out, I am contemporary, as I mentioned before, and the third book has a lot to do with quilting which I know nothing about. I just have an appreciation for what I see, but I know nothing about how you would go about quilting. And it also involves the foster care system. So someone that went through it as a child with bad experiences, and then those who have adopted later in life with really great experiences. So kind of morph those things together. So for example, coming up in the next couple of days, I'm going to a person's home that is a master quilter. And so I get to get into her world and see her studio and really get to kind of pull those types of things in. So I like to touch and feel and get all the senses going for my research, because it kind of helps things come to life for me a little bit more. And so just to make it short and sweet, that's, that's how I do a little bit of my research, is reaching out to people who are, like you say, are just happy to do so and happy to be a part of it. And so I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I love, well, when I'm writing my historicals, I love dropping in tidbits of actual historical events and the earthquake in particular, and you just write these people and say, by the way, I'm interested in this. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. I got a professor of seismology who wrote his thesis on this particular event. I got so much information. It was fabulous. And his last name was Hornbach. Okay, perfect pirate name. I'm naming a pirate after you. Is that okay? He was thrilled. I don't know who was more excited to talk to whom, but certainly I've done a ton of research. And if I use the name, my pirate ships are fictional, but if I use the name of a British Navy ship, that ship actually sailed in those seas at that time. And that was to the extent that I did it. My biggest research right now, and it started back when I was writing Bump, my next story, my heroine is Native American, and I'm doing extensive research on her people and her tribe, and because it's very important to me to do that job properly. The same way when I did Bump, my research with the deaf community was brilliant. I mean, it was brilliant. I learned so much about my character by talking to other members of the deaf community. And things that as soon as they said them, it's like, well, yeah, duh. But it wasn't something that I would have thought of myself. That he was an excellent poker player because he reads faces all the time. Being in a crowd for him was exhausting because he reads everyone's face. Having his hands tied behind his back was akin to torture for him, because now you've taken away his only form of communication. And it's like, okay, and to drop those little jewels into the character, when you're writing, the fiction part of it is for me, it's gold. And like Laney said, and Karen as well, if you find an expert on something and you tap into their passion, they will tell you whatever you want to know. And I've done it over and over and over again. And no one has ever said no to me. So I found the professor of Native American Studies at Rutgers, who is also, she has written the true account of Pocahontas, and past all the myth, past the princess, this is the truth. She's also the head of women's studies in relation to the English settlers. So I'm like, okay, if I could hand pick a person for this book, it's you. And so I wrote her. 20 minutes later, I had a list of books to read to help me. So, but like I say, I think as authors, we have a responsibility when we're writing something beyond us to do that research and to do it respectfully and honestly and to the best of our ability.
Yeah, I'll add in that too. That's definitely true. When one of my cooking series books, the girl knew how to shoot, and she was a karate expert. Now, my husband and I took karate, and my daughter too, for almost 15 years. So I knew that wasn't going to be an issue to write, but I didn't know we didn't know how to shoot. So my husband and I actually went and took gun lessons. We took shooting gun lessons for like 6 months. So what I wanted to know was how the gun felt in your hand, what the recoil is, how quickly you could get off a shot. Not that I would ever use it, and I didn't, but I had to know that so that I could make the heroine holding the gun seem and be authentic. You know, you see in the movies, they hold the gun this way, you know, they shoot like this. There's so many things they do incorrectly. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure if I wrote how she was gripping the gun, how she was standing, how she was breathing, that it was going to be perfect. And it was just so, and plus it was fun to learn how to shoot things. But so we learned to do different things. The karate was easy. Like I said, we did karate and we boxed for so many years. So the boxing portion of it was good too, but it's fun. You know, you have to know what you're talking about, because somebody will. And if you make a mistake, you will never hear the end of it. And they'll write a review and they'll give you a 1 star and say they don't know what they're talking about. And they'll tell all their friends not to read your books. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. I don't know if we have any new questions. Laney, you said you thought we were going long. I thought this was going till 6. Was I wrong about that? Or was it only till 5?
Well, I actually put it on Facebook to say till 6 because it didn't have an ending time. So I guess, so that might have been where you saw it.
Okay. Michelle, she has a question for you. She says, do you have any questions for any of us?
I don't, but I thought it ended at 5. So
Yeah.
I have to sign out in a couple
Go ahead.
minutes.
Go ahead. That's fine.
That's fine. Thank you so much. And
Thank you for sticking. Thank you for sticking with us.
Michelle.
Good Saturday.
You too.
You too.
Take care. Happy reading.
Thank you.
So
I thought it ended at 5 as well.
Yeah, I saw 6 somewhere. It must have been Karen. I saw
it might have been me because I had no idea. Yeah, it would have been a good question to ask, but.
So I don't know. Is it Elise? Is it Elise who's on? I don't even know. It just says from Toadstool. Okay, so she's ending it now. Great. Is everybody okay with posting a recording? Yes, it's Elise. Okay. Is everybody okay with posting this recording on their website?
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, I put makeup on and put a contact in.
Lipstick.
So, yeah.
Put on lipstick.
Lipstick, yeah. Yes,
I put jewelry on. There's jewelry here.
Yes, Elise, we're all good with it, okay? Good, all right. So Karen, before any of us go, I just want you to know, you talked about Alzheimer's and dementia. I have a master's degree in geriatric psychology, and I used to run an Alzheimer's unit. So if you ever need any kind of dementia expertise, not from personal experience, but from working, I can be of assistance to that. So feel free to reach out.
No, yeah, that's the book that's in the edits right now. So if she raises some red flags, I would certainly be happy to reach out to you. So thank you for that.
Claire, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to say that my mother passed away
Right.
going on 3 years now, not from dementia. However, I think there were many times it was almost a murder-suicide. So if you needed any funny stories, you can ask Lisa and Peggy. I have plenty of stories about my mother being a 5-year-old in an 80-year-old's body. So
yeah, I hear you. Yeah,
I can laugh about them now, but not so much when they were happening.
yes.
It's good to have distance though, because you can laugh now, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. And I feel bad because obviously it's not written about my mother, but
Right.
you glean certain things from it.
Sure.
My mother was a graceful, lovely lady, even when she didn't know where she was or what was reality.
Yeah, it's tough. It's
my
very tough.
character was a little darker.
All right. Well, I don't think Elise has left the room. So if we don't have any questions, we can all go get dinner.
It was nice.
Lovely to meet you all.
You as well.
Nice to meet you too.
It's so sad that this is the way the world is now, because we did this in person. Hopefully next year we'll do it in person again.
Hopefully.
It would be nice.
Well, it's
All
a
right.
pleasure meeting all of you. I
You as
appreciate
well.
it. It was great.
Go right.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
I'll be right back.
Bye.